Access to the Monte Zone will be granted shortly. Please stand by.
It's Friday. It's 8 o'clock. It's the Monte Zone.
Yeah!
Hey. Good evening, everyone. It's Friday, and we're here to talk some paranormal on the Monte Zone with my co-host G-Star. Good evening to you, G. How you doing this evening?
I'm just getting by.
I will say, G's not feeling very well. He's had a cold all week, so if he disappears off, it might be because he's sorting himself
if I
out.
turn my camera off and microphone off, it's because I've got to blow my nose. But I started getting sick last weekend, so I thought by now I'd be all good, but it's a tough one to shake off. So it's been a very challenging week at work.
Yeah, the dreaded.
And with everything else, research for this show, and
the dreaded man flu, as Mickey says in chat.
Yeah, that's right, Mickey. Hi, Ed. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you.
It's good that we've got a viewer. That's the main thing. we're not
I was
talking to
kind
us.
of thinking. Usually, I would have done a sort of trailer or a promotion video to make sure that everybody remembered that we were on this evening, but just not had time, and with the illness and everything, it just was
not
possible.
No.
Hopefully, people, if they don't join us this evening, they certainly can watch us on.
They can watch it back. Mickey's got a good chance of winning real or fake.
Yeah. So stick with us, Mickey. You could be tonight.
Smiler Rainbow's there. Good evening, Smiler Rainbow, our ever-suffering wrench. This evening, as the title suggests, we are talking about the paranormal faith. So artifacts or things in religious canon that have paranormal qualities. That's the subject this evening.
Mythical items.
Mythical items. Now, I will say that G-Star very helpfully came up with a list of items, and we chose 3 each. So we're going to be covering 6 things this evening. I will say now that unlike Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade, I chose poorly, I think. I chose poorly. I wish I'd had a different choice. But we've got what we've got, and we'll be going through them. First up, we've got some channel news from G.
Yeah.
We've got some channel news from G, and we've got some general monthly paranormal news. And then we'll be getting into the main topic of the night.
For sure.
For
shall
sure?
I kick off with the channel news?
Go for it.
Awesome. Right. So basically, as we were just talking about, I didn't end up doing a trailer for this evening's show. And one of the things that I was doing and started last week was working on a new episode of G-Star Vault. It's going very, very well. I was planning to do a bit of a inserted plug into that video for this evening's Monte Zone as well. But I got sort of about 2/3 of the way through making that video, and then I called Monte about this last week, and I was like, "Damn, there was 2 pieces of main evidence that I went into a bit of deeper research and found that they've been, quite categorically disproven to be hoax and fake." So that kind of threw everything off a little bit for the video, but thankfully, talking to Monte and a couple of other people, I've worked out a way to salvage the work that I've done in the video. However, it won't be probably uploaded now until maybe the end of next week. So it's going to be quite a while until I've sort of got some new content ready, and I'll tell you why. And that is because, well, first thing I should say is last Sunday, I should have been on an interview with Andy McGrath from Beasts of Britain channel.
Yeah, I remember.
And I fell ill on the Saturday, so it's really ironic because the first time I interviewed him on the Vault Sessions, so everybody should remember Andy McGrath, who we had on the Vault Sessions. He's the guy that's real expert and author in cryptids and has done the Beasts of Britain series. Anyway, when I did the interview with him, I had COVID, and I was in a terrible state, but I managed to hide it, although I don't think it was my best interview ever. But yeah, so that was ironic. So then I was meant to be interviewed by him because he asked me to join him on his channel, and I was meant to be interviewed by him like the weekend after the wedding, so quite near the end of March. And he got the lurgy, so he had to end up rescheduling with me. So then we rescheduled to this Sunday, just gone, and I got sick on the Saturday.
Yeah.
And as much as I was like, I'll try and push through it, I was like, no, I sounded like the man from the Tunes advert. Like, there was no way I could have done the interview. So we've rescheduled, and it's looking like we're going to reschedule to get together on the end of May. But that interview with him's not live, so again, I don't know what his time scale is for
edit.
when he films and then edits and gets out. So that's going on. But also, the other reason why it's going to take me a while to finish that episode that I was talking about is because next week I am jumping in the car and heading up to North Yorkshire to spend 2 or 3 days with Ben Walgate from the 401.
Oh, right, yeah.
Doing some location filming around his patch. So that should be utterly cool, and it's going to be great to observe what Ben does. It'll be great for my future content and the future content for the channel, because his channel is just going from strength to strength. I mean, he's now on the cusp of like 20,000 viewers, so his content lately has been really, really fantastic. So it'll be great to see how he does what he does. It'll be great to join him. I'll be filming on behalf of like doing a Vault episode. and obviously he'll be filming for his channel. So it'll be great to then get back and edit that and share that with you guys, which would be awesome. That'll be coming on the channel. Then the other thing is the Vault sessions are going to be kicking off again on the last Tuesday of this month in May, and I've got a really exciting guest joining me for the first session and coming back session, I should say, and that's going to be Kevin Hines. Now, if you're a good follower of the channel, you might remember the name Kevin Hines. He's an author again. He's local. He's done the Haunted Plymouth series of books. No, Plymouth. Yeah, Plymouth Hauntings.
Yeah.
And no, Haunted Plymouth. Sorry, Haunted Plymouth.
Oh.
That's his series of books. I featured, because of like reaching out to Kevin and getting his permission, I featured a few of his sort of investigations that he's done on Storytime episodes. So the Storytime that was about the haunting at Manamead House in Plymouth, that was from Kevin's book. And so yeah, that got a really great reaction from everybody. So Kevin Hines is not just an author, he's a paranormal investigator, and he works and goes on investigations and I don't want to say seances, I'm looking for another word, not like vigils, but you know, where they basically, you know, investigate a location and stay overnight. Yeah. And he goes there with mediums, and he goes there with people from academia as well, to coming at from more of a scientific edge. But some of his investigations have been really, really interesting. So he's, you know, a really prolific name within the paranormal investigation arena in Plymouth. So it'll be great that he's local to us, and he'll be coming on live. And so that'll be the next Vault sessions. That'll be the first one coming back.
Fab. Wow, there's a lot going on in the Vault, so it seems a bit quiet on the surface, but it's a bit like a swan. It seems quiet on the surface, but there's loads going on underneath.
Yeah, you're definitely going to see, and especially it's great because of the time of year that we're approaching, but you're definitely going to see more sort of like on location stuff from the Vault, rather than me just sitting here and talking to you guys. But the episode that I am working on is that was and should have been launched this week. That is, you know, pretty much a standard G-Star Vault, and it's tackling an area that we've never discussed really heavily here before on the Vault. It's a cryptid, but of the wet kind rather than the furry kind. So yeah, watch out for that one. That should hopefully drop by the end of next week.
Cool.
So that was the
channel news. And what about the what's been going on recently then in the paranormal world? And Smiler Rainbow, if you're listening, I forgot my bottle of Chardonnay that's in the fridge. I don't know if you can possibly grab it for me. That'd be great. Guess who's back again? Karen's back. Tell a friend. And thank you, Mickey, for giving our lovely Karen a nudge.
Hi, Kaz. Good to see you. And again, hello, Mickey, and hi, Smiler. So news from around the world in the paranormal before we get into that.
I'm gonna have to create I need to create like a jingle. Like a little like video, you know, like a yeah,
yeah, and then get
paranormal news. Yeah,
remember Serious G?
Yeah, I remember Serious
G.
Yeah.
I think
what's happened to Serious G? You need to bring him out of retirement. Oh, fine.
Well, you get him 24/7 anyway, really, because you know Serious G is more like me than I'm. Yeah. So anyway,
where's Happy G? Where's
Hey, I'm happy. I'm all kind of G's.
Where's Fun G? Fun G. Sorry, hey, carry on.
Do you know what? I just came across something the other day, right? This is not the paranormal news. This is something that just popped into my head. G-Star. Mm-hmm. I basically came up with the name G-Star because of the five sort of areas of paranormal. And it's the 5 points on the star, and G, right? So,
yeah.
But you know, I recently found out that our sun is classified. It's called a G star.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
I was like, I didn't even know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
G star. So there you
G-star.
go. I'm the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So news from around the world then. So this next bit of news, I came across initially on TikTok. It was on a video, right? So as pretty sort of standard, you know, with it coming from TikTok, I was like, oh, is this genuine? So I did a bit of research and I found out actually it is genuine. It didn't sound far-fetched, but just because it came from TikTok, I just had to double check and make sure it was a thing. But the story was about how we all know SETI, right? The Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence.
Yes.
And we all know about the expansion, the explosive expansion of AI recently and the use of AI.
Yeah.
Well, SETI have started using a particular piece of AI to speed up their search or be able to monitor more of space simultaneously. And since they've been using it, they've already yielded 8 potential signals, radio signals. And so it's quite exciting in the world of SETI and search for extraterrestrial intelligence. I'll just read you a little bit from this article. Excuse me, I'll have to take my glasses off because that type is so small. An international team of researchers led by scientists at the University of Toronto has developed a new machine learning algorithm to help answer one of the biggest questions of all: are we alone in the universe? It's another use of artificial intelligence in which a computer performs tasks humans used to do, and obviously can do it quicker. They hope their new algorithm will streamline the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, commonly known as SETI. It can find potential signals in data that other methods might have missed. And in fact, after looking at 820 initial stars, it was already found 8 potential signals of interest. These signals have been kind of like tested, and you know, they formulate certain behaviors that show that they're not naturally occurring radio signals, because you know you can get naturally occurring radio signals. So yeah, just thought it was quite exciting.
Oh, that's really interesting. I hadn't heard that. Mickey says he's heard about that, but no, I hadn't heard about that. But it makes sense with all they can do with artificial intelligence, and now quantum computing's becoming a thing, which is greatly increased the processing power. You know, it'll be amazing what they'll be able to do moving forward, if we don't, of course, start having to worship our new overlords, but our new AI overlords. But you know, it's exciting stuff. Good evening, Kevin. Hiya, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Yay, Kevin's with us. Awesome. Great. Yeah, so I mean, you know, I'm not going to go through the whole thing now because that's not what the show is about.
No, it's interesting.
But I would say to anybody, if it sparked your sort of interest, just Google SETI using AI, and you'll get something come up. That what I was reading was from Earth Sky website, but the other interesting thing about it is that 6 of those 8 signals come from destinations where they're in systems. That 6 of them are in systems that have what do they call them? You know, what do you call the planets, and like the moon? There's another name for them. Doesn't matter.
The solar system?
No, not solar system. Well, solar system, yeah, but 6 of the signals come from solar systems that have a G star sun.
Oh right, yeah, like planetary systems. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
and they have,
which makes sense. Yeah, because they're stable stars, right? Mm-hmm. They give off a good amount of power that create a large Goldilocks zone, but they don't flare up a lot. They don't create an excessive amount of radiation, you know. Because if you get like the most common star in the universe is dwarfs. But dwarfs, if you want to be in a Goldilocks zone of a dwarf, it's really small and it's really close to the star. So if there's a solar flare or some sort of like weird thing, it'll just completely eradicate the life on that planet. So G stars, as you say, in the middle of the mainline star sequence is the things you want to be looking for, really, because they're the most stable.
Yes, indeed. And thank you so much, Smiley, for trying to help me out, like planetary bodies. What I was actually trying to get at was satellites, because sometimes when you talk about planets or moons, you call them satellites, just basically satellites, just something that orbits something. But to answer your question, Mickey, are they in the Goldilocks zone, these signals? I didn't see them mention that or go into that detail in the article that I was read, but go and have a look into it, because it is quite interesting, and it could really speed up that sort of search. And I think that's an area of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence which will probably be the area that will reveal the most information the soonest, I think.
Yeah, and just for those people that don't know what the terminology means, when we say Goldilocks zone, it's because planets orbit stars at different distances, and if you're too far away from the star, it's too cold and everything's frozen solid. So it's very unlikely you'll find intelligent life there. If you're too close to the star, it's too hot and everything just boils away. So it's unlikely you'll find intelligent life there. So there's a sweet spot, a bit like Goldilocks and the, in the Three Bears porridge. One was too hot, one was too cold, and one was just right. And it's that sweet spot in the orbit of a star where water can be water and not vapor or ice. There we go.
Exactly right. Good idea to clarify. Yeah, because I don't suppose everybody knows what a Goldilocks zone is. But they do now.
I can imagine our audience does, but just if anybody's finding this and they don't know, that's what it was. Yeah.
So right, and the next piece of news is dead interesting. Before I reveal what's kind of interesting and funny, which you might find humorous, Monte, is that basically I'll read you the title of the article, and again, I thought, God, how much truth is there to this? And then I went and researched, and actually, I'll come to it, but yeah, it's definitely true. A report confirming the existence of giant aliens has been declassified by the FBI. That's the title, right?
Right.
An unnamed source also describes the operation of flying saucers. Oh no, I think I've lost the page. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. The FBI released an almost 70-page paper from 1947 that was written by an anonymous professor and contained information about several UFOs and multi-dimensional entities. Right. The Daily Star's British version released the report.
The Daily Star?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it comes from Memorandum 651. And I have a picture of Memorandum 651. It's ready to share, Monty. So this is the declassified article from the FBI. Now, what interested me about this is not what the story is about. And this is why I brought it to the show. Because, we've seen this many times in the world of ufology, where there's certain declassified documents that really kind of mention certain things that show that people with both in the military and government are referring to unidentified objects or, bodies or whatever. That's not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is the article then goes on to say that what the FBI have done is that they've started putting all of their kind of declassified documents onto a site, digital site, that you can go onto, and you can basically just search anything and search document numbers, and as a member of the public, you can sort of peruse all these documents. And I thought, okay, well, let's go and see if this is true. And it is. And guess what their platform is called, where they store all these documents?
Don't tell me.
Anybody in chat got a guess?
The platform where the FBI store all its documents.
Yeah.
Is it called the X-File?
No.
No.
Star G. No, it's called the Vault. So you can actually Google the FBI Vault.
Wow.
And try it out. And the platform itself, like I went on there and I so this article that they mention, or this document that they mention in this article is called Memorandum 6751. So I went into their search engine to search for that. Could not find it. So I guess they're not listed as their numerical numbers, but the search engine platform looked like it was made by somebody in 1998. It looks so archaic. But yeah, if you want to go and try that out, I thought I'd let you guys know about it because, might have some
very
fun
cool. Very cool.
looking at the documents. But yeah, apparently, what's skeptical about this document that I've got on the screen is that it's apparently written by a professor that was working with the FBI, or submitted the document to the FBI. I don't know, but he's not. He or she is not mentioned by name, so that makes it pretty hard to sort of investigate the credibility of it. But it does talk. It is something that was stored for many years in FBI documents that talks about these giant aliens that were really, really big, and but a lot of people have then come back in ufology circles and said, well, it kind of doesn't tie in with everything else that we've got that happened around 1947 and what we've been told, and it sort of conflicts with that because that's when the little greys came on the scene with reports and people making claims to certain things around Roswell, and so it kind of conflicts with that. But I just thought it was interesting and just thought I'd share it because I was chuckling away to myself that it was called the Vault.
Yeah, the Vault. I will check it out. Thanks for letting us know.
Yeah.
Well, that was two interesting bits of news.
Yes.
Is that the news done? News section?
That is the news done, yes, indeed.
All right. Imagine I'm playing a news exit jingle now. But yes. Well, thank you, G. The main things, check out the AI SETI using AI to find those new signals. Interesting. And the FBI document vault. Very cool. Very cool. Right, so on with the main topic of this evening, the paranormal faith. So yeah, as I said earlier, we chose our topics, and the first one I'm going to discuss is going to be my quickest one of the evening because, right, I chose it. G-Star put the list together and he did a very good job of choosing the topics, but I chose this one because, well, my love of astronomy and stars and things. I thought, well, that'll be interesting because it fits into my, talking about space, right? Mm-hmm. And I chose the Star of Bethlehem, right? What a mistake that was.
Well, see, I was considering choosing the Star of Bethlehem because of other more selfish reasons, but I'm really interested to see what you've looked into.
Not a lot,
right?
I'd say. Couldn't really find much. Now, do you know this is the first thing that was interesting to me. The Star of Bethlehem is referenced in the Bible in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2. And it's between verse 1 and verse 10, right? And it's actually only mentioned in 3 of those verses. So I'm just gonna quote some verses from the Bible right now. So this is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2.
Preach it. Preach it.
Preach,
Don't just
right?
read it. Preach.
So, verse 1. Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem. So 2, saying, where is he that is born the King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him. 9. When they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. 10. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. Right. That's it. That's it. That's why does my phone keep beeping? I keep trying stop beeping.
Smiley, evening Wookie, by the way. Sorry.
Evening Wookie.
Quick that in. I've just noticed you're not in uniform.
I couldn't find. I was a bit rushed.
I'm in uniform.
I've got my t-shirt. I was on uniform last time, and you weren't. So you know.
Yeah, all right.
I tried to find it, couldn't find it, so just grabbed a generic black t-shirt. But yes, no.
Smiler says in chat, we are entering into the twilight zone. Monte quoting Bible scripture. And then Mickey said, I'm converted.
Right. Well, it was just interesting to me that, you know, of all the nativity, you know, symbols that we see, the nativity stories and, you know, the plays and films and, you know, everything we see, actually in the Bible, that is the entirety of what is actually said about the Star of Bethlehem. That's it. There's nothing else. So
let us know in chat if you know anything interesting or paranormal related to the Star of Bethlehem.
If you know anything, then so there are some, you know, some things to be gleaned from those 4 verses. So 1, these wise men came from the east. So they came from they were called Magi. So they were like tribesmen, head of tribes, and they would have come from some distance away. So if they saw the star and it signaled to them that the new king of Jerusalem had been born, it must have been in the sky for a period of time. The king, King Herod, he saw that sign as well, the star, and he believed the same as the Magi, the 3 kings, the 3 wise men, and he ordered basically the execution of every baby boy that had been born in the last 2 years that was under the age of 2 and under. So if he was seeing it then, that must have been in the sky for quite a period of time. And also, did it move? Because in verse 9 it says, after they talked to the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw originally in the east went before them and stood over where a young child was. So did it move? You know, did it move about rather than just appear in the sky at a solid point from one perspective? So, you know, there's certainly questions that can be asked about it.
Yeah.
Scientists have thought about what it could have been. For example, Mickey said, so was it a comet? And interestingly, quite often when you see pictures of it in nativity displays or paintings, sometimes it is seen with a tail, like a comet. So obviously that leads people to think it could be Halley's Comet or something like that, you know. So a comet is the more scientific explanation. The only other one that they think possibly could be, well, there's two other things actually. One's a comet, two's a supernova. So, for example, like the supernova that created the Crab Nebula or the Orion Nebula in Orion, because those would have been, very bright and visible to the naked eye, even during daylight. So, possibly a supernova, because that would have hung around for quite a long time after it happened as well. Where a comet would come by in a matter of like weeks or days, not necessarily months or anything like that. So maybe a supernova. It definitely wasn't like a shooting star, because they just go and that's that. It's done. The third possibility is a conjunction. So sometimes when like Jupiter and Saturn align in the night sky, they are so close together that they merge and become, from the observer on Earth, one singularly bright star in the sky. So could it be a planetary conjunction? But none of those particular things are very paranormal. They're more just scientific explanations of things the Bible describes.
So I've got a couple of questions.
Okay. I've just given you my total sum knowledge, so I don't know if I'll be able to help you.
Well, you may or may not be able to help with these questions, but they're still valid questions. So it talks in the Bible about the star coming from the east. Is that correct? Or that it was in the east?
No, the kings came from the east. Oh no. It says, now Jesus was born, blah, blah, blah. There came wise men from the east. Yes, so the wise men came from the east, so they would have seen the Star of Bethlehem to their west.
Right. Okay.
Which aligns with a conjunction, really, because sometimes when we see conjunction in stars, it's generally after the sun's gone down to the west. So that kind of does work.
I could be completely wrong on this, but I thought I remembered that in Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse, I'm sure he mentions something about in the Bible when they refer to the star, that it's in the same location of the sky. He was talking about there's a lot of synchronicity of ruins around the world where they're all facing the same direction. That would be in the night sky. I'm sure he made some sort of like offhand comment about, the Star of Bethlehem or whatever is also meant to have been in the same location as in terms of, location. But I could be completely wrong on that. But yeah.
Yes, Graham Hancock, the journalist. Yes, that's the one. Okay, just say yes. They all do tell, all the disciples in the Gospels tell different accounts of the birth of Jesus, but it's only Matthew that talks about the star and the Magi. There is other mentions of stars that I found, not the Star of Bethlehem, but there are other stars, guiding stars in the Old Testament. For different reasons, but they are different things. And there's a star when the Archangel Gabriel falls to earth. But yeah, this is the only reference to the Star of Bethlehem. Yeah. That's all I got. That's it.
Okay. So yeah, the reason why I was going to choose it is because in ufology circles, there's a lot of kind of theorizing about the Star of Bethlehem and it possibly being, UFO related, that what they were seeing was some sort of craft that was trying to guide them, and this makes a connection between religion and extraterrestrials, but I haven't researched it. I remember reading some stuff about that years ago, but I'm sure there's not anything evidential about it. But what I was going to say is, because you mentioned about illustrations and the whole Halley's Comet thing, you know, I don't know if you found with your other items that you researched, and I certainly found it sort of, you know, quite a common theme across the ones that I was researching. But you know, where you talk about a lot about illustration, those illustrations sort of appeared, you know, around the 12th, 13th century, rather than around the time of the, you know, supposed Christ. So, you know, when you're thinking about what we're saying is somebody drew this event 1300 years later, whether they got it absolutely correct in terms of whether it's just an artistic perception, interpretation, that's where the issue arises.
I'll show you the sort of thing I mean, just to go with what Mickey was saying about a comet. See this one here, look. I mean, it looks pretty comet-like with a tail and everything, you know. But as you say, this is a painting from like the Renaissance era, so you know, you're talking over 1,000 years after the event.
Yeah, Kevin in chat has said that a lot of the old paintings show the star as a UFO. Now, what's really interesting, if you go into this whole dialogue and theory of the UFO connection with these events in the Bible, you know, again, just in this keep that picture up. Just in that picture that you were showing there, Monty, this is a really good example, because in a lot of illustrations of things like Jesus and like the three wise men and things like that, they all have this sort of circular thing around their head.
Halos.
And, yeah, halos. And a lot of people within that sort of UFO camp will talk about how that could have been an artistic perception of some sort of equipment, like head equipment or spacesuit, and over the years and the story being passed down, that's how it's ended up being depicted as a halo. If you look at a lot of religious imagery, a lot of where they depict the halos look like, you know, from another angle, it could just look like some sort of helmet on the people in the picture. So I thought this was a really good example, actually, because everybody's sort of got this thing on. It's
also thought, and this again is a bit of a conspiracy theory type thing, but the halos are all leftover from like the Egyptian god Ra and Horus and the Book of the Dead, and you know the birth of the God Messiah, his life, and then his crucifixion and death at the end. All characters, because they were the sun was the god. The characters tended to have like ellipses around them to say they were the sun, and it could be a holdover from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smiler asked in chat, I wonder if any hieroglyphs anywhere documented bright stars. And yes, again, actually, you know, between, just extending what Monte was talking about there, between a lot of Egyptian sort of hieroglyphic imagery and then the imagery and illustrations that you can see in Christianity, there's a lot of similarities between like the positioning and the significance of the event that's being depicted and the positioning of the people in that illustration, leading, like Monty said, that it could be that it's just almost like somebody just doing a carbon copy of an earlier event.
And also, like Wookie said, you know, the time and date of the birth of Jesus has changed with time. So they made it Christmas to match with the winter solstice, you know, because Christianity adopted a lot of the pagan holidays to be user friendly to the population. You know, you're used to having your holiday here, celebrating the winter solstice. Well, now you can celebrate the birth of the Messiah instead. Wonderful times. But we also don't know actually for a fact when it was. They kind of picked an arbitrary date, but there's a lot of feeling that if Jesus did exist, then it could have been a bit earlier than what is generally thought, like by maybe a couple of 100 years, you know. But nobody really knows. Nobody really knows. So you can't say, oh yes, Halley's Comet was around that date, because we don't really know what date it was. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I don't know who it was in chat. It might have been Wookie or somebody said, and they're quite right, that there's quite a common theory that the dates within the Christian calendar have been moved in such a way to kind of overshadow pagan traditions and holidays, etc. So yeah, there is a lot of question mark around that. So yeah.
So the Magi were Iranians and Persians. They were Persian tribal leaders, basically.
Yeah.
And
Persian's going to come up. Well, certainly in my subjects that I'm discussing, it's going to come up a couple of times.
But interestingly, these Magi, these Persians, they were what's called. Now I'm going to get this wrong, so excuse me, everybody. They were Zoroastrianists, or basically they were priests of an early religion called Zoroastrianism. But the interesting thing about that is they worship the morning star. They worship the star. Basically, they worship Venus. So so it's quite interesting that it happened to be that these people were star worshippers. Anyway, there you
go. Wookie said in chat, I don't know where it's gone now. Graham Hancock, the journalist. I don't know if you mean that in a, just to point out, that's one of the big things that Graham Hancock goes on about, that he's never claimed to be anything other than a journalist.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I don't think that that's a bad thing, to be honest with you, because, in terms of his work around the ancient apocalypse, I mean, he's been doing it for over 20 years and investigating it. So if anybody's an expert, but I don't think you need to be, like, for example, an archaeologist or a scientist to be able to be an expert in these kind of things, because investigating is investigating, right?
I think you do need to be archaeologist, and I disagree with you there, G. I have to say, okay, you're gonna study it to
so we can only ever believe what scientists say.
No, but yes, basically, yes, because they're the people that study it to such a degree that they know the most about it. A journalist, Daddy's talking. A journalist studies it enough to write a story, a book, a piece for a magazine, but they don't spend their entire life investigating one fraction of that story to be the absolute world-leading expert on that particular thing, like an archaeologist would do, like a scientist would do. So no, I don't see that as equal things at all. No. But I do think he's a journalist.
When scientists study stuff, they release papers and they release the information about what their findings are.
Many papers, yes.
Yeah, and if you read all those papers and you read all of that study that they've done, are you as knowledgeable about the reality of something as the scientists are, or are you lesser because you're not a scientist?
Nothing like it, because I'm not a scientist. It's like saying I can watch every Steven Spielberg film, but that doesn't make me a director. It doesn't make me understand how to be a director.
You don't need to be a scientist to know something.
We'll just have to agree to disagree with this one and move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, but he always says he's a journalist, and he doesn't, as you say, he doesn't prescribe to be anything else.
Yeah. Okay, shall I go on to my first one?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so my first one was Stigmata, and not teaching people to suck eggs, because probably most people know what Stigmata is all about. Obviously, there was a film, I think it was in 1999, with Patricia Arquette, was a pretty good representation of what Stigmata is all about. But would you mind, Monte, if you can find a Google image of Francis of Assisi?
I will. See. Just him, or any particular pose, or? Well, any one of them in particular?
Have you? Can you? Sorry, can you just scroll back up again? I was looking more because I thought there was a. Is that?
Oh, there's one with him with bandaged hands. Look.
Perfect. That'll do. So, what's interesting about Stigmata, because obviously it's a representation. I think they say it's of the 5 wounds. So it's a depiction of people suffering the pain of Christ on the cross and the crucifixion. Which was predicted, or in the Bible it says was at such and such a date. But the first stigmatic person didn't really appear till 1224, and that was a gentleman by the name of Francis of Assisi, who was a noted ascetic and holy man, and obviously then a future saint. He became a saint, and he was prepared to enter the second month. So the first time that he ever showed signs of the stigmata, he had actually been on I can't remember if they call it pilgrimage, or and a part of this process he had been fasting for a number of days. So there's sort of theorizing that maybe that whole process was part of him showing these wounds. But the first wounds that he displayed, was basically he bore the 5 marks actually. So he had 2 on his palms, 2 on his feet, where the nails were fixed, and then he had a 5th on his side, because it's quite commonly known within the crucifixion that they also put a stake or a spear through the side of you as well. So as I said, within the world of stigmata, they call it the 5 wounds. Now I can't remember if it sort of developed later on, but then there was also an additional wound, which is the scratches of the thorn crown that he wore. So obviously started with Francis Assisi. You've got a few real highly noted stigmatics. There was another guy around the 15th century, Padre Pio, I think his name was. He also became a saint. It's a bit strange because within the Catholic Church, there's certain stigmatics that have been, what's the best word to say, sort of shunned by the church as not being genuine, and
Debunked.
then later on,
debunked.
Yeah, well, not debunked as such, but just kind of no, this person is lying, they're not truthful. But funny enough, over the years and over the centuries, then they've become accepted by the church. So, for example, there's one pope, an early pope around the 16th century, was very adamant that this woman, who's one of the famous stigmatics, she's the one that cried a lot of blood tears when she had the stigmatic sign as well. But later on, one of the modern John Paul popes actually went to where she was buried and did a pilgrimage there, and sort of almost said that she was saintly like. So it's kind of like they've gone full circle in being accepted by the church, which is a bit bizarre. But as I said, it sort of all kicked off around the 12th century, 13th century, and then sort of went a bit quiet. And altogether, do you know how many cases, like properly recorded cases of stigmata there's been?
In the history of Christianity, 20,000.
Sorry?
20,000?
No, only 300.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's not a lot. But what happened was there was this like real spell where there was nobody coming forward and saying, I'm suffering the wounds of Christ. And then it picked up again around the 16th century. And there's feelings that, from certain skeptics around the whole stigmatic thing that, basically that happened because within the church there was this sort of revival of trying to kind of change the image of the church. And what you saw is like within depictions of Christ on the cross, previous to this, they'd been very much like very saintly and showing, Jesus Christ as this powerful entity. Whereas, around the 16th century, a lot of the statues and objects that they displayed inside the churches showed a more honest, graphic view of the crucifixion. So like blood coming off and him crying tears of blood. And they were trying to re-image the church as this real kind of like, we should understand what pain Christ went through for us. And that's when all of a sudden, funny enough, when a lot of these statues of Christ on the cross that were a lot more graphic and showing the wounds, all of a sudden, number of reports and cases of stigmata started kicking up again. Now, what is also interesting is out of that 300, those 300 reports, you've got about 10 that are really notable. And somewhere, these stigmatics suffered these wounds for, over a number of decades and to their death. But of all the cases, nothing has been monitored by, a scientist team or a study where they've been able to observe them over a period of time, because there's this whole discussion about fasting that comes into big play, and there's a common thing with stigmatics that they don't eat a lot or don't eat at all, and their body is being preserved because they are blessed by Christ, and that's why they're a stigmatic as well. So they're saintly, and they don't require food. But what the scientists have said in their sort of write-ups and conclusions is that we've sat with this person for a week, but the human body can survive for over a week without food, but we can't sit here for like 2 or 3 weeks or whatever waiting to make sure that this person is definitely 100% not eating any food to sustain themselves. So, but nothing has ever been fully scientifically proven. But what is interesting, which I was kind of surprised at, is that throughout all of those 300 cases of stigmatics, a good, I would say, if I recall, it was about 80%, 85% were all females. Which, I was kind of quite surprised at, because, when you think about stigmata, they're sort of, relaying the wounds of the crucifix of Christ, and, Jesus Christ is meant to be a man. So, but it was more common in women. And some of those notable 10 that I talked to you about, a good population of them are all women, and some then went on to become saints.
For some reason, whenever I think of stigmatas, I think of women. I don't know why. But yeah. Maybe because of the film, or I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. So there was a couple of interesting things that I found out, but there certainly hasn't been a reported case for quite a long time. And obviously, it's very heavily embedded into the Catholic Church of Christianity. There's only actually in the whole 300 cases that I was telling you about, there's only two that are non-Catholic. One's Anglican, and the other one is Baptist, I believe. But it's predominantly people who have been part of the Catholic Church.
Can you imagine if you fake it, what you have to go through to actually do that to yourself? It's pretty
Also,
extreme.
sorry, I forgot one other really interesting point, and they do sort of mention this in the 1999 film, but in a lot of the early stigmatas, the records and the recordings where people have documented it have stated that their wounds in their hands were in the middle of their palms. Now, obviously, science then went on to, and archaeology went on to indicate that there was very obvious signs that they would nail them by the wrist because of the weight of the body. So, but then later on, throughout like the 17th, 18th, 19th century, a lot of the stigmatas then, there have been stigmatas who have been photographed and they've got the wounds in their wrist. But it's interesting how that's kind of like evolved and changed with our, social understanding of the archaeological reality. So.
Right. Yeah, I just read. Kevin says, "Is it Opus Day or something?" I have to admit, Kevin, I don't know what Opus Day is, so that didn't land with me. I don't know. But Smiler says,
"You're surprised that we're discussing a lot of religious stuff."
I know.
Because the episode's called Paranormal Place.
Yeah, sorry. This is a one-off. Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is. I don't know. Didn't David Blaine do it? Smiler Rainbow. I'm sure he did. Yeah. He didn't get the memo of where it should have been, did he? Because he's done it in his hands. Look, so he's made a rookie mistake there.
Yeah, and actually, funny enough, you've kind of lent towards something there that I was thinking about. As the week evolved, I was thinking to myself, if I had more time, I'd really like to look into stigmata in a little bit more detail in relation to psychosomatic cases and pain and what the human mind can produce, because the human mind is a powerful thing, and we're only on the tip of the iceberg of understanding what it can do if it's fully functional. So it'd be interesting to delve into whether there's any evidence of people being able to psychosomatically make wounds appear on them that aren't related to religious icons, but and just see if there's some connection there. Because the interesting thing about the majority of stigmatas is that they were, devout, like Francis of Assisi decided apparently to join the church and become solely, and completely invested in God at the age of 6. So these are very, very devout. And as said, I've talked a lot about the fasting, and it's like they'd put themselves through great lengths to kind of show their faith and loyalty to God and to Jesus. And there's a lot of discussion about whether that in itself presents a state of mind where you then get into a zone where you can make your body start showing signs of crazy things. But the weird one is the woman who used to cry the blood, and I think that
a medical condition.
It was like the 1920s or something. So there's like actually photographs of her like crying the blood, etc. But again, none of these pictures were taken under scientific conditions or scientific study. It's just pictures that people have shared about.
Wikihouse did house cover this one. Was that house as in the American drama show with the British comedian chap? Is that what you mean? I haven't seen that. If that's what you mean, the Doctor program. I don't know. Yeah, no, I've never seen it. Is it worth watching? Is House worth watching? I've never watched it. Hugh Laurie, that's the chap. Yeah, Hugh Laurie. Yeah, never seen it. So your stigmatas blend nicely in with my second topic, which I also completely regret having that you've chosen stigmatas, because I just figured actually it's the same thing, but but with statues, and this is bleeding icons. So those bleeding icons, no.
Boom. I want the tumbling weed sound.
Yeah, you got to yeah. So it's the same sort of thing. So again, not a lot to talk about on this really, but don't worry. My third topic, which will be coming up a little bit later on, is a bit juicier because it's the Ark of the Covenant. So we will be talking about the Ark of the Covenant later, which is a bit more interesting. But bleeding icons anyway. Really took off after World War II. A bit like you were saying with the stigmatas, G. It's been around since the 1200s, sporadically, every now and again. There's reports of a statue of Christ, or Christ on the cross, or the Virgin Mary bleeding from one of the 5 places of the crucifixion, you know. Or crying blood or crying water in case of the Virgin Mary statue phenomenon. But for whatever reason, since World War II in the latter half of the 20th century, the number of reports of these things has skyrocketed. One of the best modern examples of this is a statue of the Virgin Mary from Akita in Japan. I think I might have a picture of that. Bear me a moment. There is the not a particularly great picture. But that is it. It's the picture, the Virgin Mary, and it's in like a monastery in Akita in Japan. It basically wet, perspired, and bled blood from its hands and from its head, and some of the blood appeared to create a cross shape down its front. In this case passed rigors of investigation by local scientists and a local diocesan? Yeah, Rust. And the Vatican investigated it, and it was all passed as being, well, unexplained, but what it is. Yes, I think it is, but it's one of the most well-known examples. There's also a picture of
where is this?
Japan, Akita,
right.
Akita in Japan. You know where the dogs are from. You know the big fluffy dogs like Robert's got.
Yeah.
Akita, it's from there in Japan. Oops, no, that's the wrong place. Not there. Over here.
If they're proven Monte, aren't they called a miracle by the church?
I eventually, I think it's got to go through a lot of more rigor, but it hasn't been turned down, but it has been looked at. The convent, whatever it is, the monastery or convent, whatever it is, that's run. It's run by a Roman Catholic nun called Sister Agnes Sasagawa. Agnes Sasagawa. Yeah, she's she works there. There's a picture of it crying. Yeah. When was the New Testament canonized? I don't know the exact year, but it was wasn't it by Emperor Constantine, the Roman emperor, who realized he was losing grasp on the Roman Empire, so decided in a rather radical, swift move to put aside the multiple gods of pagan Roman belief in favor of monotheism and Christianity. I think that was around 850 AD, but that's just from my brain box, and you'll probably tell me something else, maybe 600 AD or 800 AD, 850, something around that time. But then they decided, of the books that they had of the Gospels and the Apostles and in the Epistles, what actually made it through to the New Testament. Was it 200 AD? Was it that early? I thought it was later than that. Wow. But the things they didn't like, they threw out, and the things that they quite liked, they left in. So you end up with the 5 Gospels of Mark, Luke, John, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Was it 4 Gospels? You have the Gospels, then you have the Apostles, and then you have the Epistles, and then you have the wider stories, and then at the very end of it, you have the Book of Revelations, which contains like the end of days and all that sort of thing. But yeah, let's have a quick Emperor Constantine. When was he then? Yeah, 337 AD. So yes, I was off by about 300 or 400 years. Yeah, well, you know. But yes, obviously, as a sort of non-religious person, whilst I'm not, Christian or anything, I do have a lot of interest and respect for the Bible. So I've read quite a lot of it. I've read the entirety of the Old Testament, and I've read a fair bit of the New Testament, but the New Testament doesn't interest me as much as the Hebrew Bible does. But yes. So, Bleeding Icons, yes. So that's the most best example in recent history. In 1914, a physical researcher, Everard Fielding, died in 1936, investigated a more impressive case, a set of incidents that had begun 3 years previously, and this is in France. There was Abbé Vachier, Abbé Vachier, in a town of France called Rimabo-en-Poitou, and basically Abbé Vachier claimed that a picture he owned bled, and a statue in a nearby grotto sweated blood, and the Eucharistic wafers that they give out in communion, when he consecrated them, they dripped with blood. In 1914, church authorities asked for evidence of the pictures and the statue, and he complied with their requests. And he also then later revealed a second picture that also began to bleed, and Fielding took samples of these things back to England for analysis, and proved that it was blood. It was human blood. And that's all they could tell from it, really, back then, being it was 1914. It all sounds really great until later you find out that Abbé Vachier was actually excommunicated by the Vatican because he was proved to be a fraud. So, Yeah, but like you say, at the time he was excommunicated. Cause that's I think that was the term I was looking for earlier. Excommunicated by the church, basically, you know, shown the other cheek, and you're no longer associated with them. But as time's gone on, so that has kind of gradually been overturned, and maybe it'll end up being included again one day, as these things sometimes do. But yeah, that's all I've got really. There was some other cases. There's lots of these that happen in like South America and Cuba and like Argentina and things. It seems like Latin America are really big on bleeding and weeping statues. There was one.
We know that things can sweat in those kind of temperatures anyway. But if you've ever been there and like touched buildings, that everything sweats because of the humidity.
There was one famous case in Chile where a housewife come forward with a statue of the Virgin Mary that had stigmatas on her hands, and scientists this time tested the blood, and this was in 1996, and found that it was human blood of O negative, I think it was, type. But again, that's all they could say about it, really. And there we go.
Well, it's time to take a break from mythical items and paranormal faith and go into real or fake. But as I said last month on the Monte Zone, this is not a normal real or fake.
I'm going to look that up, Wookie. Am I going to regret looking this up? Sorry, yes, carry on, G.
Kevin just said there was one in Mexico recently. I presume he means a bleeding statue.
I don't know what I'm looking at. Oh, man.
So, guys, yeah, as I said last month, the real or fake that I was going to bring this time wasn't the sort of standard real or fake. It's something that I came across. It's about a study that's been done on more than 700 people. And they found out that 4 in 10 couldn't tell the fake pictures from the real ones. Even then, those that did notice something wrong, but could only spot what it was 45% of the time. This was a study done to start looking into the social impact of social media and people looking at images and how easily images can be doctored, and then help support a total different dialogue and story, which then creates fact that is not true. So I kind of thought it sort of sat really well with the way over the last year or so I've been doing real or fake with the Vault audience or the Monte Zone audience, and you guys should hopefully be quite well trained to look at some of these and get it right. But I must admit, when I did it, I scored quite badly. Not that there's a scoring system on it, but I just know that I didn't do very well. Yes, and just to mention, because I just wanted to use this opportunity to clarify real or fake, not that we're doing the normal format tonight, but just to clarify that fake images, because on one of the recent shows of real or fake, there was a lot of discussion about the fact that I used an image with an Asian gentleman with a wok statue that was a real statue. So therefore the guys were saying, well, that makes it a real photo because it's a photo with somebody holding a real statue. But the reason why it's fake, because fake can be done by a number of different things. It can be done obviously in a modern format with Photoshop or CGI, but obviously over the decades and the centuries since photography began, things have been faked by props and other techniques and tricks and visual illusions. So, and that image that was in question that we were talking about with the gentleman with the wok statue, he in the photo is trying to depict that he is tossing the rice in the wok. He is not tossing the rice in the wok. He is faking the situation, and that's why it's a fake picture. So just wanted to clarify that, but not that that's going to be an issue tonight, because that's not what this evening's Real or Fake is about. Are we ready to play?
Yeah, it's just I can't find it, Wookie. Every time I search like that sort of thing, it just gives me stories about Madonna. I can't seem to find anything. It's just all Madonna. No, but like Madonna, the singer Madonna. Yeah, okay, send it to me later. Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, go G.
Are you sure?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so as I've mentioned, this evening isn't the same as Real or Fake, because in chat you would usually shout out whether you think it's real or fake. You're not going to be doing that this evening. Each time what I'm going to be presenting you with is 2 images. Now, this is not a game of spot the difference. One image is the real image, and one image has been doctored, and you need to choose whether it's right or left that's been doctored, and you also need to tell me what your thoughts are on why it's fake or it's being manipulated.
Ooh. Am I going to get angry?
Probably, as I said. It's ready to share, by the way.
Well, it's just like
I
spot the
didn't score
difference.
very well on this. So it's not spot the difference. You've got same two images, one on the left, one on the right. What you guys got to tell me is which image is fake and which one is real and not being touched at all. And you've got to tell me what it is. Just going to try and zoom that in a little bit more.
Don't
want to zoom too much.
No, because you're cropping the... you might be cropping out important details.
So
I'll tell you what,
chat.
I was putting chat in on screen for a minute, but I'll actually go back to the... I'll go back to the wider so you get a better look. There you go. And
yeah, I'm looking at chat anyway.
I'll bring chat back in when we talk at the end then. One's fake and one's... Okay, right, well... You say
it's not... What you've got to remember is it's not a game of spot the difference.
No, I know this because they look the same. So, I don't know what it is I am looking for.
I mean, just to clarify, there is a difference in one image, but that's not the nature of the game. Because with spot the difference, it's always like things that are missing. So
I don't get it. I'm not sure what I'm doing. Should I just choose one? Then maybe it'll become obvious. I'm going to groan, aren't I, when you explain this to me afterwards. I'm going to be like, oh, God.
So Mickey said left is real, so try and let us know why you think left is real. Karen's disagreed and said left is fake.
Yeah, I'm going to go left fake, right real. So,
okay,
I'm
if
agreeing.
If you've got a piece of pen and paper to hand, maybe, because I'm not going to give you the answer right now. I'm going to come back to it. So write down on a piece of paper, like number 1, and then write down the side that you thought was fake, or
the side I thought was fake. Okay, so 1 left. Okay.
Just to re-clarify for anybody that's struggling, you're trying to look at these 2 images, and one of them is either being added, Photoshop, something altered about it, something manipulated about it. Whether that's just simple photoshopping, filters, manipulating the image itself, which one has not been touched and which one has. This, as I said to you last month, this is the master class of real or fake. If you don't score 1 in this, I wouldn't be worried. I only scored 1 out of all of this.
Next.
But it's a good social study. So I'll stop sharing that one and then get the next one up. Ready to share, Monte.
You don't have to reshare it. You can just go left because I can see them across the bottom of the screen now.
So which one is real and which one is fake? Well, don't have to say which one. Say which one is fake, left or right. So just going back to the first one, Mickey. Still waiting to see what you thought was what you get left is real.
Got it.
Also, Karen, let us know why you thought left was fake.
Left is fake.
So just write down.
I spotted it on this one. Is this the one you got?
I'm not saying.
This is where you say it's right, isn't it? Well, put it this way. I've spotted the difference on this one. I don't know whether that's.
That's good. Just record just as I say, jot down a note which one you thought was fake and has been altered, left or right, and we'll come back to these in just a moment. I'll let you know. You ready for the next one?
Wookie's passing. He needs a bigger screen. He's using his phone. Yeah.
Ready for the next one?
Yep. That's a hell of a face, isn't it?
It's a hell of a fish.
Oh, what is it? Like a pike? I don't know what that is.
I think it is a pike, but I'm no fish expert.
I don't know, but to me, these images are all a bit fishy.
Yeah. Which one is the fishy one?
I'm worried it's going to slip through my fingers. The answer.
Remember, note down. Keep your own track of which one you're saying is the faked one. So on this one, Karen's quite determined that the right is the fake one.
She was very positive about it, wasn't she? I know it's only in text, but I get this sense of positivity coming from Karen on that one. I don't know how she's so positive about it. How did you get such a positive answer from that? Oh, yes. Yes. Right is fake. I've got it, Karen. I'm with you. I found it. I can see it now. Now I see it. It's obvious, but it took me a while.
Okay. Everybody ready to move on to the next one?
Yes.
Yep. That's all right.
He looks like he's having a... That's my kind of afternoon, that is. Well...
Karen's positive. Excuse me.
You think right's fake? She's again positive. Now, one thing I'm seeing with this one is they've recentered the photograph on the left. Because on the right, he's off to the left. But on the left one, he's in the middle.
That's probably where I've cropped the two pictures together.
About to say, yeah, I didn't know.
I've had to put these together.
Okay, right, okay. So I was just checking that wasn't the thing. That wasn't the thing. Okay.
Apologies. But
yeah, one of them has been cropped.
It's far too difficult to show you one image at a time. Keep swapping back and forth and going, right, okay, remember, like, how crazy would that be?
One of them's been terribly cropped.
So please ignore the cropping. Left or right? Have we got any answers in chat?
Karen says right's fake and she spotted it straight away.
I think that was the last one.
Oh, was it? Oh.
Maybe, I don't know.
Well, no, I know. I think she's... Are you saying that for this one as well, Karen?
Has anybody got a scientist they can call? Maybe they'll know the right answer.
Yeah, it's this one. Yeah, she said it's right's the fake and she spotted it straight away. But I cannot see it. I'm going to kick myself, aren't I? I'm going to absolutely kick myself.
I'm going to move on to the next one because it's the last one.
I've got it.
You ready?
I've got it. Karen,
Are you ready?
I've got it. It's right, it's fake.
This is probably the easiest one of all of them.
Oh, yeah. So it's got to be right's fake then. Right is fake.
Jot that down.
I gotta
Everybody
go-
got all their answers?
I'm going to go back to the first one because I did not see. I put left, but
Well, if I'm going back to the first one, I'm giving out the answer.
can you just give me a second? Yeah, right's fake. Yeah. Oh, I just cannot see it. I just cannot see it.
Right, hopefully everybody's jotted down their answers, and you can give yourself 10 Monte points, 10 Monte Zone points every one that you get right. So this was number one. I'm about to reveal which one is the fake. It is the right one
Damn
on
it.
this. And basically, it's if you look at the posts in the background where there's the chain sort of like fence along the path. If you look at it on the left one of the posts is in the middle of the grass.
Yeah, it's different
The post
position.
has been moved in the picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now this next one was the one that you felt quite confident on, Monty. So. if
Well, I
you'd
can
like
tell you why. The difference I spotted is his shiny nose, but I wasn't quite sure whether the shine had been added or taken away. So, if it was added, then the right would be fake. If it was taken away, then the left would be fake. So I assumed he shinied his nose and said left was fake.
Yeah, so basically you're 100% right there. The original image is the one on the right. The doctored one is the one on the left, which has had a filter added to it to remove the shine from his nose and his cheek. And you can obviously see a difference in then the color of the background and the environment as well.
Yeah. Altered, maybe, Wookie. Altered. Yeah.
No, it's fake.
Fake. It's called Real or Fake. That's our game.
Yeah.
That's fake. Yeah. Go on then. Next.
Okay. Next one. Let us know as you're going through, as we're going through in chat, whether you got it correct and whether you got the 10 points.
I'll let you.
So again,
I'll let you say this one, Karen, because you inspired me to find this one.
Yeah. So let us know which one was the fake one, Karen. Remind us and tell us why.
Mickey's 2 for 2 so far.
Nice one, Mickey.
Alternated images. So the right one's the fake one. Sorry, I was just trying to give Karen some time to... what did you think it was? It's the tree line. Yes, Karen. So you can see the tree line to the right at the top. In the left, you see there's gaps in the tree line, and on the right, the tree line's been filled in, but you can still see the reflection of the gaps in the reflection in the water. G?
Yep. Correct. Sorry.
Hello. Yes. Once you see it, it's like, oh, it's bloody obvious.
On this one, Monte?
This one, someone's taken out the shadow of the second beer glass in the right-hand image. The beer glass doesn't have a shadow.
Correct. Yeah. So this is where it started. They started to get easier because the next few are based off the... Well, this one and the next one is based off the shadow.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very subtle because the shadow in the original isn't that pronounced on the table. But yeah, it's definitely removed. So it just kind of goes to show you how things like that can be easily removed from photos, and you just don't see the touch-ups and things like that. So it's, yeah, it's quite interesting. And then this last one, which was obviously the easiest one, I think everybody got this right. So to reveal, I actually got these last two right on my first sitting, but you know, the first time I was doing it by myself, and again, I was on a phone. But this last one, it was the right image, the shadow of the gentleman that's been moved. It didn't make kind of any sense why his shadow would be sort of, you know, to the side and away.
It's big and obvious as well, isn't it? I originally thought, I wonder if it was like that was the original and it is actually the shadow of the person taking the photo, but then I thought, no, it can't be because that guy doesn't have a shadow in that case, and it mean he was a vampire or something.
Yeah.
I got 4 out of 5.
Well done. So you scored 40 Monte's own points. Let us know in chat what you guys scored. Whether you beat Monte. I know Mickey was doing really well there, so let us know your end score, Mickey.
Karen got 4 out of 5. Did you hear about the photographer that got caught out majorly for taking photos of Golf Pro and removing caddy and crowd? No, I didn't hear about that. Wookie got 1.
Mickey got 4, so Mickey drew with you. So I think our winner was Karen with no.
No, she got 4. We all got 4. We all jointly.
4 out of 5, or 4 or 5, right?
Yeah.
There were 6 altogether.
No, 5.
Mine got 3.
We all got 4 or 5.
That was 6, wasn't it?
No, it's 5. You don't even know your own game.
Yeah, you're right. It's not my game. This is one I brought. So this is a study, not a game.
Oh, study.
Scientific study.
Did we just take
by
part?
Scientists.
Did we just take part in a scientific study?
Yeah. And you all did like not too bad actually, so you should be proud.
Those of us that have big screens did all right. Those of us that are on our phones didn't do so well.
Yeah. Right. So what was my next one? My next one was the one that I think I should do next is the Shroud of Turin. This might be one that people aren't so familiar with, but
this is the one I should have chosen.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, this one, and it's been quite as I say, interesting researching it, because there's things that and the reason why I was excited to look into this one is because I know that there's been some new developments with this as well. But it's got quite a long history. I wanted to ask a favor to see if you could find an image and a picture of both the full-length Shroud of Turin, and also like if you can find like a close-up of the face, which is the key part of it.
Yeah. So let's go.
I'll give you a very quick synopsis. Or an overview of the history of the Shroud of Turin. So it's around, again, very similar time frame to some of the stigmatic activity, but it was around about the 12th century that this appeared. Now, what's really quite significant about it is that that was, again, sort of 1200 years after the burial of Christ, or the supposed burial of Christ, right after the crucifixion. And this shroud is meant to be was used in the tomb of Christ to cover his body, and it shows an image that's stained in his blood, etc. And yeah, that's a pretty good interpretation of it. It's obviously fabric. Now, it originally turned up, funny enough, in France. It was, I think the surname of the gentleman was Delaney. He was a Knights Templar, and popped out of the blue somewhere in the 12th century and said, I've got this shroud. He'd obviously come back or been around the Crusades. I've got this shroud, which is like, from the tomb of Christ. It kicked around in France for a good sort of, somewhere between 60 to 80 years, went down through the family of Delaney in France. And then one of his relatives, a lady, she then sold this shroud to the royalty in Italy, and she actually got excommunicated by the church for actually selling it to the Italian royals. And the Italian royals that bought it then took it to Turin, and that's how it's developed the name of Shroud of Turin. So that's a bit of history of and it stayed in this church on and off display to the public. Obviously, in the last sort of 4 decades, it's had quite a lot of scientific study and research. Now, again, just unfolding the history of this Shroud of Turin. In 1988, it was carbon dated, and so it was carbon dated, and they discovered that the cloth aged back to around about 1200, 1300. So it would then instantly announce to the world that it's gone under this scientific carbon dating, and therefore this is a forgery. There was a lot of people, back in the time of Delaney, and when all these claims were being made that said that it was heresy and that it was a fake, and he was making it up. The carbon dating would go a long way to prove that it was him that created it. But here's where it sort of divides some of the scientific community and certainly divides some of the religious community, because with all the scientific kind of study that's been done of the shroud, the thing is, if it is fake, it's very, very, like, you know, people can't even sort of think about how they would have done this, especially around 1200 BC, and you know, tricked it, manipulated it, whatever. There's separate sort of sub theories that maybe it is a true cloth from a tomb of somebody who looks like that, and that's why it's so clear and so concise. But the main thing is that the world, it was announced to the world back in the late 80s that this, you know, it is a forgery. But the thing is, as technology has developed and people have stayed focused in on this, there's some really interesting developments in it. Now, there's this one guy, just read him. Basically, there's this thing that he's thrown out. It's been quite covered in the press, but he's put this, because it was originally the British Museum that did the carbon dating in 1988 that proved that it sort of was dated from 1200 to 1300. And basically, a lot of people have started questioning that carbon dating because, interestingly enough, around 1988, when all of this happened, was one of the first times that carbon dating was used, and carbon dating had only just been invented. So it was, carbon dating was pretty much in its infancy. The other thing that people argue about is that to be able to carbon date, they needed to take a piece of the fabric. So what they took is a piece of the fabric from the edge. But then there's a lot of people that have argued that it's, you know, because this is being displayed in a church, it's being considered a religious sort of iconic artifact for several hundred years, you know, that where it's frayed, there's been repairs made on it using more recent materials as it's gone throughout the centuries, etc., to make it look more presentational, etc. So anyway, let me read you a bit of information from this guy who's thrown out £1 million to anybody from the British Museum, and he's got this backing or this funding for this £1 million if they can back up the results of the disputed carbon dating testing. It was one of the most eagerly awaited scientific announcements of all time, and it pitted the world of faith against the world of rational thought under the glare of the media. So when cutting-edge carbon-14 tests found that the Shroud of Turin was a forgery, it seemed like the final chapter for the relic that has been revered for centuries as the cloth in which Christ's body had been wrapped when it was supposedly rose from the dead on the first Easter almost 2,000 years ago. But one man, David Rolfe, a filmmaker whose documentary The Silent Witness has brought the Shroud into the public eye in modern times, and who has converted to Christianity as a result of his research, wasn't prepared to give up on it. He was convinced that the carbon dating carried out in 1988 under the direction of the British Museum and the Oxford University had been flawed, and now he claims that he has evidence to prove it.
What was his name?
His name is David Rolfe. Rolfe is spelled like Rolf, R-O-L-F, but with an E on the end. This week sees the release of a new film, Who Can It Be?, in which Rolfe argues that far from the Shroud being a definitive dud, new discoveries in the past few years have again opened the question of its authenticity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump ahead and I'm going to go to this article that's entitled New Scientific Technique Dates Shroud of Turin to the date of Christ's death and resurrection. So what they've done is they've used some new technology to date this shroud. And
can I just jump in a bit?
Yeah,
just jump in. So just to address a few things in live chat. Yeah, I mean from the it's a summary of various wiki info. So it's what G's been going through is a bit of a summary, a bit of a walkthrough of things you can find in Wikipedia or various wiki sites. But yes, the radiocarbon dating does lend it to be fake, I guess. Just to shine a light on the first picture I put up, that was because you asked for a full body shot. I forgot to say when I put this up that this is a negative of the actual shroud, so it actually looks more like that, from the top half. Yeah, so but you can see the features better in negative. And one of the other comments, he has an old face for a 33-year-old. Yeah, he does. But then the thing is, when someone dies and your face ends up shrinking into the skull, and everything seems to retract, and you end up looking like an old person. Anyway, if you ever look at the Tutankhamun mummy, even though it was basically a teenager or a young boy, it looks like a withered old man. So if it was a dead person in this shroud, it could be a young man that ends up looking like an old man in death. But yeah. So yes, just thought I'd address some of those comments. Back to you, G.
I've got a video, which I'm just going to share.
Yeah, keep them coming, Wookie. Keep them coming. Well, if it's not real, but you say it's not real, but I mean, they dated it in radiocarbon dating. They dated it to around 1260. So even that, for a piece of cloth that has that beautiful, delicate image on it that was created to me, 800 years ago, I still find that's an amazing thing. No matter what it is, it fills me with wonder, just wondering how they actually went about creating something as realistic. And, it almost looks like a photo, especially when you turn it into a negative. But how did they create that on that delicate cloth like that? It seems crazy to me. And if you do pull it up, the whole image on, say, if you went to the Wikipedia site, it's got a picture of the whole thing, which I didn't bring up. But so that's the body there we were looking at, but it's actually got the back as well, because it was wrapped around the entire body. So you can kind of see his shoulder blades, and I mean, it is ancient, and you can see the fingers. It's amazing. It is a genuine mystery on how they created it. So I find it very interesting anyway.
So a couple of other
ancient alien tech. Yeah, all right. Yeah, sorry, go on, Jim.
A couple of other interesting points to note is that the blood on the cloth has been DNA tested, and does include 2 genomes of male DNA that's been presumed to be Persian, or what was that area that you said that's next to Persia, or was next to Persia?
Iranian?
Yeah, sort of Iranian or Persian, sort of from that area of the world anyway. But as I was leaning on to say is that there's some guys that are working on this right now that are doing a new process to date it, where they're using X-ray technology, which means that they don't need to remove any of the fabric, and they can do this test on sort of any area of the fabric. And I'm almost saying it as if they're about to do it, but they've done it. And their testing has sort of led that it's more around the 2,000-year-old age. And whether you believe in that test or not. What, as part of this test, what they did, because it was a new technology that they were developing, using this X-ray technology, that they used it on several other archaeological materials that they knew were said dates. So like, around the 1400s or whatever, so they could test the accuracy of this test against known, dated artifacts. And the test itself had something like a 97.7% sort of accuracy in its results. So it's quite interesting. But as I said, I've shared a video which is ready to play. This video is taken from
throughout the centuries to try never before.
Just where they've this is in Italy, in Turin, where they've connected to this team of I'm not going to say scientists, just guys that have been working on this. And then what the guys in the museum have done is taken it to the next level, and they've used all the kind of patterns and the things that you see on the shroud to kind of recreate what the body would have looked like that was underneath it. And here's just a quick video to show what is this is on display at an exhibition in a museum in Italy.
Much work has been done throughout the centuries to try and confirm or disprove the authenticity of the actual Shroud of Turin. But never before has such painstaking work been put into recreating a life-sized model of the man who would have been under it.
Porque los artistas a lo largo de la historia.
For the first time in history, the image we have created on the shroud lacks the influence of an artistic movement. It is not Romanesque, it is not Gothic, it is not Michelangelo, it is not Renaissance, no. This is reality, it's hyper-realism.
At the end of the exhibition is what the organisers are calling the hyper-realistic figure of the mystery man. And in front of the waiting press and local dignitaries, the figure is unveiled to the world. The figure is an extraordinary piece of work, looking incredibly lifelike. The hyper-realistic sculpture, which is made of latex, silicone and real human hair, has been based on data collected from the Shroud of Turin.
La piel se hunde, la piel, el vello es humano.
The skin sinks. The hair is human. It weighs 75 kilos. It behaves like a person. It is real, right? I think this has been a big risk because we did manage to create successfully the image of the man under that shroud.
There you go. Just thought I'd show that.
I have seen a picture of that a couple of times today, and I wondered what it was.
Yeah, so I just thought it was interesting just to look at some, earlier developments, and the fact that even though the carbon dating happened in 1988, there's still a lot of people that are wanting to move forward and do tests on it and using more advanced equipment to kind of do those tests. So it's interesting. It's still they're still prodding and probing, and yeah. So it didn't even originate in Turin in Italy. It first popped up in France in the possession of a Knights Templar.
But it's actually got documented history back to around the 1200s and 1300s, which is pretty amazing. What do you think it is then? I'm asking Mickey, Wookie, Karen, Smiler Rainbow, and yourself, G. What do you think it is?
Personally, I think it's a cloth that was used on any old buddy in a tomb buried, whether that be around 1200 or earlier. I don't think it goes to prove that person that was under the cloth was, Jesus Christ, as we hear in the Bible. I'm not religious, so I can't really, consider that that's the, the cloth of, or the face of Jesus. I just think it's a face. I don't think it. What basically scientific study of it has revealed is that they've basically said, you know, and going back to 1988 when it was revealed that it was, you know, from 1200, what they, you know, within their findings, what comes up a lot is that it's like, it's not as old as what they're saying. This isn't Christ. Somebody's, you know, hoaxed this or claimed it to be something that it's not, but we can't understand how they've done it because it would be extremely technical for its time for them to have, you know, manipulated that or done that. So that's why I think it was possibly a real cloth in a real tomb of a real person. But I don't necessarily say that goes to prove that it was Jesus that was under the cloth.
European Jesus. Yeah.
This was, you know, especially as they've done DNA tests on the blood, it's, you know, it's been proven to be blood. You know, there's a lot of things that, you know, it would just be extremely challenging to even replicate that now. Well,
that's the thing is me, like, even if it was just a wrapping of a body, I don't see how that image would have been produced by wrapping in a dead body. I just... that's why it's an enigma to me.
I believe it's to be something to do with the process of decomposition and how the body kind of sweats or produces an oil, and that oil can sometimes carry the blood. Just because they found DNA results, I mean, I think the DNA results revealed that there was a lot of other different things in the samples that they took out as well, but they could see that there was genomes of human DNA in it. So whether it's just a process of the decomposition, I don't think it's like blood. It's like blood that's sort of, you know, it's a slight bit of blood with other fluids. And
yeah, I don't know. I just think we would have created others by accident in the last 1,000 years if it was like that sort of thing.
Yeah, true.
But it's not something that's been created. Not like so. It seems like more of a purposeful project to me. Kevin says maybe it's just some really dirty sheets.
Yeah, what you got to think about is that if, say, for example, you know, as I said, it first popped up in France in the hands of this Knight Templar who had, you know, come back from crusades in and around the area of like Jerusalem and stuff. You know, that we all know what they did like throughout the crusades. Maybe they ransacked some sort of place, and, you know, back in the day when they used to bury people in wraps and cloths and stuff, and then they just nicked a load of stuff. But all those tombs now would be like that cloth would have probably perished. The only reason why that cloth is still, you know, with us is because they've encased it in airtight glass for most of its existence, to stop it from decomposing. Because if they didn't, it would just, over time, it would just disappear. So maybe that's happened in all the other tombs or the ones that are left, but I don't know, you know. So
as what he says, don't know what it is, but it's a remarkable thing. Yeah, it is. There we go. The Shroud of Turin, or the Turin Shroud.
Ark of the Covenant.
It's Ark of the Covenant time. Yes. Right. It's my favourite topic of the three that I chose in the end. Still not got massive amounts to talk about it, but a little bit. So I'll just give you a quick overview of what it is. So the Ark of the Covenant is a sacred chest that is believed to house the tablets of the Ten Commandments, as well as some other holy artifacts, including Aaron's rod. How Aaron happened to lose his rod and put it in a chest, I don't know. Whether it hurt when he lost it, not so sure. But the Ark of the Covenant contains Aaron's rod, and it also contains a pot of manna. Manna from the gods. So that was
Is there an actual real Ark of the Covenant?
The Ark of the Covenant. Well, it depends what you mean by that, G.
Well, is it sitting somewhere in a museum somewhere?
No, it's in some SAS. It's in some CIA secret warehouse somewhere, isn't it? On a shelf.
Isn't that just how they depict it in Indiana Jones?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was getting mixed up with fact and Indiana Jones.
You know, to be honest, I haven't researched this one, so I don't know if it is a real, like, tangible, like the Shroud of Turin is tangible. You can go there, you can see it.
GH Cambodia. I don't know what that means, Wiki. I'm going to Google it. What's GH Cambodia? Ghana? No, I don't know what that means either. Graham Hancock.
Is it altered?
Yes, no, I saw Graham Hancock claimed that it was in Cambodia. Yes. No, I don't necessarily prescribe to that either. But anyway. So yeah, we'll talk about maybe some of the possible places it may be now. But anyway, so just give you a bit of background into what it is. So we discussed it contains the tablets of the Ten Commandments, Aaron's rod, and a pot of manna. And according to the Hebrew Bible, in Exodus, Yahweh instructed Moses to build the ark during his 40-day stay on top of Mount Sinai. The ark was made of shittim, which I thought was quite funny. It's made of shittim, which apparently is now what we call acacia wood. It's made of acacia and overlaid with gold. So it was pretty damn expensive because acacia wood back then was difficult to get hold of. So pretty expensive thing. It was decorated with various intricate carvings and designs, including two winged cherubs, where they were facing each other in sort of kneeling prayer, with the wings arcing over, and Yahweh, or God, was to appear in the middle of the two cherubs. The approximate size of it was 3 feet 9 inches long, with 2 feet 3 inches wide and 2 feet 3 inches high. It's measured in cubits in the Bible, but that's what it is converted. The ark was intended to be kept in the holiest of holies, the most holy place. That's a lot of holes. But
apologies if you already said this, sorry, but the Ark of the Covenant is talked about and written about in the Old Testament, right?
The Old Testament, yes.
Yep.
We're in the Hebrew Bible, which is the Hebrew Bible is what in the Christian Bible is called the Old Testament. It was kept in a thing, the holiest of holies, which was inside the tabernacle, which is basically a tent that God instructed them to build to house Yahweh in heaven, or the gateway to heaven, where the priests could go in and converse with their God. And they could carry this tent around, and it was sort of, God's portable shack on earth. And they basically used it once they were wandering around the desert. And eventually the Israelites, they settled in Canaan, the chosen place, and the ark was kept in the Temple of Jerusalem. Yes, how many mustard seeds in a cubit? I don't know, they probably sneezed too often that they never actually figured it out. So the ark was said to be the symbol of God's presence amongst the Israelites. It was treated with great respect and reverence, and they even took it into battles. I'm not sure when they took it into battles whether it was just for the sake of like a talisman, like a standard, or whether they used it as a weapon of mass destruction. I'm not sure. The Bible's a little vague on that point, but they took it into battle anyway. And the end fate of the ark is uncertain. According to the Bible, it was captured by the Philistines, who were very skeptical, those Philistines, and during the battle, they returned to the Israelites after it caused plagues and basically ruined the Philistines' economy. And they eventually thought, we don't want it anymore, so they gave it back to the Israelites. It was lost a number of times, and it came backwards and forwards to Jerusalem, and eventually its fate remained a mystery. So there you go. Was it held behind the walls of Jericho? It probably was. So what else do you want to know? I said it was in the tabernacle. Well, the high priests of the Israelites, they were only allowed into the tabernacle to commune with it on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. So it's like 1 day a year. And if anybody looked at the ark or touched the ark at any other time during the year, then God would instantly smite them and they'd be killed. The name of the priests that looked after that were called the Levites. And that's about it, really. I will say there's some references to it in the Bible. I mean, all that, which pretty much a summary is, as I said, contained within the Hebrew Bible, and specifically in the Torah. So the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible is the Jewish Bible, the Torah, which is made up of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And it's mostly in Exodus and Leviticus is the main references to it. And it comes up a little bit in Deuteronomy, because they bring up the 10 Commandments again later on. They revise it slightly. They realize the wording wasn't too great in Exodus, so they come back and redo it in Deuteronomy. Anyway, there we go. So there's one story where in the New Testament, when they're moving the ark and the tabernacle, they load the ark onto the back of a cart, and I forgot the name of Uzzah. The cart was like jostling around, and it looked like the ark was going to fall off the cart. So this chap called Uzzah, instantly, without thinking about it, put his hand out to steady the ark so that it wasn't broken and didn't fall off. And God was enraged that someone went against his commands and touched the ark, and duly smited Uzzah and killed him. And King David, who just become the king of Israel, was angry. He was annoyed at God for smiting Uzzah. But then David realized that, in fact, it was his fault, because he hadn't followed the scripture as laid out in the Old Testament on how the proper etiquette of dealing with the ark, and therefore he had nobody to blame for Uzzah's death apart from himself. We do have a couple of other little things. So in Jeremiah chapter 3 verse 16, it talks a little bit about the future and the disappearance of the ark. So it says, "In those days when your numbers have increased greatly in the land," so when the population has soared, declares the Lord, "people will no longer say, the ark of the covenant of the Lord, it will never enter their minds or be remembered. It will not be missed, and nor will another one be made." So it will be gone forever. Jeremiah chapter 3 verse 16. So the Bible was fully aware that the ark was going, and would never be back. But then in Revelations, which, if you remember me mentioning earlier on, is the last book in the New Testament, where it talks about the end of days and things. Revelation chapter 11 verse 19, it says, "Then the temple of God was opened in heaven, and the ark of his covenant was seen in his temple. And there was lightning, noise, thunders and earthquakes, and great hail. So that leads people to believe that the Ark of the Covenant will be seen again at the end of days. It will herald in the end of days and the resurrection and all the believers being saved and salvation and going to heaven. So there. But where is it? That's the question now. You know, it has the ability to kill people with a look and with a touch. It can cause lightning, noises, thunders, earthquakes and hail, and will usher around the end of days. But where is it? And one of the main locations that people believe it is the Church of Our Lady of Zion in Ethiopia. And I did provide a link to Google Maps so we could quickly go there. So we are here in Ethiopia, and this church here is believed that it's contained within that structure, and the only person that is allowed to see it is the head priest, following the same standards that was laid out in the Old Testament, that he's allowed to commune with Yahweh or God in once a year. And I think this is possibly the one that Wookie was talking about, because I think what's his name, the journalist Graham Hancock mentioned that he'd seen it behind a curtain or something, and lives to tell the tale apparently. But that's the main place people think it is. But there's also other places. There are people that think it was buried in Ireland. There's a whole church dedicated, a whole sect dedicated to believing that the Ark was buried in Ireland, and there's some scriptural evidence to that. But this is the main place that they believe it is. The Ark of the Covenant. I've got no evidence of it being able to melt people's faces. I've checked upon that. That cannot be confirmed in biblical references. But it certainly can smite you, as is Yahweh's will.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And like Smiler says, that building looks like a turtle.
It does, yeah. Anybody got anything else they want to add? Anybody else know anything more? I'm not sure if they dug the Nazis dug it up and it's been retrieved by the CIA and is in a black site somewhere. But yeah.
Excellent.
I learned something from TikTok this week. It's completely unrelated, but if I don't say it now, I'll forget. How long do you think Jesus was been called Jesus?
I think it's relatively... Do you mean in terms of the spelling of it?
Yes. Well, yeah.
Because I presumed it was pretty recent that it changed. Was it not like Jesus or something before?
Well, that is how you pronounce Jesus in Spanish. If because there's a lot of people in Spain called Jesus, but they call him Jesus because that's how they pronounce J's. But yes.
Yeah, I thought it was around the same time as the church revival that I was talking about earlier. So like around the mid-15.
Yeah, it's mainly to, as you say, it's a bit of how Hebrew was converted into Greek and then converted into Roman. But yeah, Wookie's got it. Jesus was actually called Yeshua. I think it's Yeshua. But yeah, Yeshua, which actually translates to English as Joshua. So Jesus was actually called Joshua, not Jesus. He actually only became Jesus in the 1800s. Which is crazy to me. I was like, what? So I had to Google it and do some research. And I was like, oh my God, Jesus became Jesus in the 1800s. I was like, he's actually called Joshua. Wow, there you go. It's crazy. Anyway. Little interesting factoid there.
Learned something new.
That's about as much as I've ever talked about the Bible in the Old Testament and the New Testament, probably in a long time.
Yeah, I think it's been quite exhaustive this week.
Sorry if I went off on one. Everybody dropped
That's
off.
Fine. You did say that you'd found more interesting info.
Yeah, I find the Old Testament interesting. It's a really interesting. It's a good read for the most part. Genesis is really good, and Exodus is really good, but then Leviticus gets boring because what they do is they talk about the creation and then they talk about the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt and heading towards Canaan, the holy city, and then Leviticus, they go, well, we didn't actually describe what you're actually supposed to do with the tabernacle. So then in Leviticus, it's just pages and pages and pages of description of religious ceremonies, of what the priests are allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, and how they should dress the tabernacle and how they shouldn't dress the tabernacle. And it's like, it really gets into the fine detail of when they should put their shoes on and when they shouldn't put their shoes on. It's like, oh, right, yeah. So, and then Numbers is pretty good. But it goes into a little bit of it goes through the generations of, like from all the prophets going forward, and it's just like tells about their children and their grandchildren and their great grandchildren, and gives the whole timeline of all these people. And then Deuteronomy, I don't know how to pronounce the Deuteronomy. I don't know. The fifth book is about all the laws that they realized weren't covered in the Ten Commandments, and how people were abusing their slaves and things because they didn't really mention it in the Ten Commandments. So then that's basically a whole book of laws, like hundreds and hundreds of laws of things you didn't do that kind of leads off from the Ten Commandments. But it's interesting anyway. I like it because for me it's like it's humans' first written account of how people should live their lives, and how it tells farmers when they should plant which crops and how they should water them, and tells societies that are not used to being societies because they were like nomads and things before. They were hunter-gatherers and nomads, how to live in a society together, how you should treat each other, and establishing for the first time proper human society. And I just think it's fascinating, and everybody should give it a go and try to understand it. It's my little soapbox piece about the Hebrew Bible. There you
go. I obviously had another one, which was the Holy Grail, but I think I might save that for if we ever come back to this subject again. I had a video, but
did you choose wisely?
No.
No.
No. Well, see, the thing about this one is that, in quick summary, this is the Holy Grail is literature more than it is, archaeology.
It's behind you.
Yes, it is. I did have it ready. The Indiana Jones version of the Cup of Christ, the Holy Chalice, the Holy Grail. But yeah, quite simply, the Holy Grail or the Cup of Christ appears in the Last Supper, and the Last Supper was painted by Leonardo da Vinci in the 1500s, so a long time after Christ was around. And actually in the Bible it doesn't even really mention the Cup of Christ or the Holy Grail. It makes some loose mention to he had a cup at the Last Supper, but it doesn't make any significance to it. Where it really turned up, as I say, was in literature around the king. It sort of inserts into the legend of King Arthur, and that's where it's heavily mentioned within literature. Now, what's really funny in the video that I was going to play, and just because time's got on, I just thought I'd fast forward through it, but as in to get to the end of why it basically is a BBC insert,
right,
from a BBC documentary talking about because there is no similar to the Ark of the Covenant, there is no where people say this is where the Grail is, or this is where it was, or it's felt by many that it's just something that's appeared in literature because it's not really mentioned, as I said, in the Bible. But then there is this church in Italy that claims that they've got the Holy Grail, and this documentary on BBC is talking about how they've done a lot of tests on this Holy Grail, and then there's all these specialists sort of and historians and archaeologists. I think they're religious historians, to be honest with you, talking about it. And I just got really frustrated because one of the things that I was going to show you is where this religious historian is talking at the end, and she's saying that what she says is absolutely the complete opposite. She talks about how the Holy Grail was in the Bible, and it wasn't until the 1300s that it was stolen from the Bible and appeared in modern literature. Well, actually it's not even mentioned that much in the Bible, so everything she said was just a complete the reality is the other way around. So I just thought, what the hell is it doing on the BBC?
Wow. Do you know what? I must have known this, but I didn't realise the Holy Grail wasn't really mentioned in the New Testament.
No.
It's just a legend.
Yeah, and it mostly appears and is spoken about in the legend.
Celtic myths. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
But it's this, this video, as I said, I just, it's crazy. Even on BBC, that sort of stuff.
Well, there you go. So that's it. We got to the end of our religious outing. Yeah, it was interesting. It was definitely
be interesting to come back at this subject and looking at other religious, other religions and their sort of, if there's any paranormal icons there, because,
there's
everything
loads.
that we kind of got tonight is really kind of very
Christian based.
Christianity,
Yeah, there's like Hindu and there's lots of. I mean, to be fair, like with Judaism or Islam, it's all kind of Old Testament Hebrew Bible related, so they're all kind of linked to Christianity in a way, and Yahweh. So they're all quite similar, but there are other faiths outside of the sort of Middle Eastern ones, like Buddhism and Hinduism and things like that. Sikhism, that have other things. So yeah, it would be good to get the other side, wouldn't it? be a bit more diverse. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, Wiki says Buddhists are interesting. Yes. Scientology. Let's not go too far, Wiki. Yeah, they certainly do have their own paranormal beliefs, shall we say, which is true. Yes. We could cover that as well. I don't say why not. Yeah, so that was interesting. I hope it wasn't too boring for you guys out there. But I think it was, for me, it was probably more interesting reading about it and researching it than it was listening to me droning on about it. It's probably more interesting for me, this one.
It's an expansive subject, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, okay, well, thank you, G-Star, for joining me again this month. I look forward to seeing your content that you outlined at the beginning of the show. And thank you to everyone that's been in live chat. It's been great to see you guys tonight. Thank you to Wookie, as always, for giving us his points of view and questions. Keep them coming, because we absolutely love them. Karen, thank you for coming and playing our game. Thank you, Smiler Rainbow, for chipping in. Kevin, thank you for coming along. And Mickey. Obviously, it wouldn't be the show without you guys and your questions and comments and engaging with us. So thank you very much, as always. Of course, we got the TNG review next Wednesday. If you want to come in, join us for that one. Wesley's back. So it's a Wesley episode next week. Back to the Academy. So come join us for that. Apart from that, I hope you have a good long weekend. If you're in the UK, it's bank holiday weekend. So enjoy the bank holiday weekend in the UK. And we will see you towards the end of May for the next Monte Zone.
See you later.
Cheers, guys.